SimWorld presents Around the Table with E and the Fat Man.
What's up, everybody? It's me, it's the B.O.B., and I am here with my man, E. How are you doing today?
Hey, I am right here indeed. I'm doing well, Bob. Hopefully everybody out there in SimWorld is too.
Absolutely. Well, this is Around the Table with E and the Fat Man. That is E. I am the Fat Man, and this is the podcast we talk about pretty much whatever we want. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about, I feel like things have really heated up in the recruiting pool lately, and I think you would agree.
Heated up, more like they're blowing up. Everything's happening.
So we're going to talk about, we're each going to pick two recruits and where we think they are best fit. And I think, E, I think I'm going to let you, as always, I want to let you go first.
Let me go first. Well, breaking news coming out on a Friday. You know, normally they say in the news industry that when something big breaks on a Friday, that means people are trying to bury it. I don't know if that was the case here or not, but big news hitting the wire. Arthur Lattimore, maybe not a shock considering that Coach Isaiah Pope did recently leave Cascadia, and you could expect some shakeup there. But Arthur Lattimore, one of the big stars to emerge during last season, wasn't necessarily being talked about come, opening day, but wasn't too long after that before everybody knew his name. Lattimore looking to move on. And that's where I want to stay first. This has just dropped. This has just happened. Nobody's talked to him, and he hasn't said anything, at least as far as I know, regarding destinations where he might end up. But, so it's like there's a top three or anything like that to deal with, or, anything about like, oh, maybe I'll come back to Cascadia. He is a blank slate, and we don't know.
Yeah.
That said, I don't know. I got my own theory. We'll see if it turns out to be right, or maybe me speaking it will turn it into reality. But Arthur Lattimore, he's from Cypress, Texas. And for all of y'all that don't know the Lone Star State that well, Cypress is on the northwest side of Houston, basically, just outside the city limits. And I could see him coming back home. I could see him going to H-Town specifically. I think Lone Star is also a contender for his services, but bring him home. Houston, Texas. What else recently arrived in Houston, Texas, folks? Oh, that's right. Coach Tim Bellardi. New coach in town for H-Town. Somebody who has a lot of respect in this league. Somebody who's accomplished some things in this league. And look, bringing him back into that situation there in H-Town, and I think that H-Town is going to return some nice pieces next year. And, of course, we're going to see Coach Bellardi out there on the recruiting trail trying to bring in some new folks. But, I think, you're definitely talking about the Port Arthur duo of Keith and Carter and Vincent Magic. No real rumblings of those guys going anyplace else, so I expect those two talented wings to be back. Tyrell Thompson, another big, had a nice year last year for H-Town. He would be a nice piece to put next to Lattimore in a front court. Don't forget Tyrell, 6'8", averaged almost 15 points, almost 6 rebounds a game last year. He's got some talent. And, at the end of the day, I just see things happening maybe here in H-Town. There's another piece going on down in Texas, and that is Cam Jones. There's been a lot of noise about Cam leaving. Now, he hasn't said anything, again, that I'm aware of, since the Coach Bellardi announcement, but I have to imagine that that's the kind of thing that catches your attention. You're a talented 16-year-old guard, and I could see this sort of like being a centerpiece. You bring Lattimore back home to Houston, you keep Cam Jones there, and suddenly, again, between the Port Arthur kids and Tyrell Thompson, you've got a really, really nice setup in place. And also have to say, forget the hometown side. We know what Arthur Lattimore can do on the court. We know that H-Town had a good, solid core last year, and what they're really losing more than anything else are their bigs. Aaron Payne's gone. His 10.2 rebounds and 2.6 assists a game, gone. Moving on to the college level. Even Aaron Matthews. And both of these guys were there for 2 years. They were there for the Ground Zero season and the first year in SimWorld. So these post anchors, landmarks, whatever you want to call them, H-Town, no longer there. Oh, wouldn't hometown kid Arthur Lattimore be a great addition with that subtraction going on? And in my mind, if this happens, H-Town is instantly one of your top 5 teams going into next year. I really feel that's the case with the addition of Bellardi. and Lattimore. So, hey, Arthur, you listen to the podcast? What's up? What are you thinking about? We'd love to know. I think you should go to H-Town.
I think that there is so first off, I'll say any team that he joins is immediately going to be a top 5 team going into next season. He's that kind of talent. I don't think Houston is in the cards. I don't think H-Town is in the cards at all, because I don't think that it was a coincidence that when Coach Bilardi decided he was leaving decided he was leaving Latin America and landed in H-Town, that I believe the same day that JMO entered the recruiting pool. I think that Coach Bilardi is going to be tied to JMO, or he's going to find himself a very quick enemy by flipping on JMO and bringing in Arthur Lattimore. Speaking of Arthur Lattimore, though, I think for me, I think there are 4 teams that would be a good fit for him. And I mentioned yesterday that I think that him teaming up with a dominant big, a dominant defensive big, would be probably in his best interest. And I think that I'm still stuck on this Saturday showcase whenever we've seen the 4 big lineup and Benari James out there on the the court. I think that Beasts of the East, Run DMV, Philadelphia, and the Originators are the best landing spots for him. For jumping back to H-Town has to decide, do they want to continue say Coach Bilardi needs to figure this one out. Does he want to keep his relationship with JMO, or does he want to bring in Arthur Lattimore? Because they only have one sponsorship to use. So that's where it's like he needs to decide early on, and he needs to let JMO know what his plans are very early on now, so that JMO is not stuck trying to scramble and find a team at the last minute. But speaking of the 4 teams, so you got Beasts of the East, him and JoJo Kearney, or Run DMV, him and you know what? Yeah, him and Nick Hugo. I think him and Nick Hugo would be.
Well, assuming Nick sticks around, but yes.
Yeah, if he sticks around. By concern, I mentioned Run DMV as a good landing spot, but I don't want to see. They do have Jahan Hudgens. He's 6'10". I don't know. I don't want to see Arthur Lattimore stuck at the center position. I think he would be good, but I think he's best at power forward, or even potentially small forward, which you could see in a Run DMV lineup. You could have Arthur Lattimore at small forward, Hudgens at center, Hugo at power forward. I think that would be a scary lineup. But I think for all the teams, I think to me, Run DMV is on the bottom of the list. I think with Philadelphia Elite, Jermaine Owens really showed out this offseason. And I think that he would be but this is another one of those situations where I'm like, would Arthur Lattimore get stuck playing center? Which again, he'd be a good center, but he would be better somewhere else. Kind of like Ben Simmons. Like he's not bad at all 5 positions, but he's just better at point guard because of his ability to facilitate. So Arthur Lattimore, he'd be a good center, but I think that would stunt his growth just a little bit. But obviously his ceiling is so high. And I think his floor and the floor, I think we're probably at his floor right now, which is scary. But then the Originators, right. I bring them up because he teamed up with Victorious Ogauskas on the court. And whenever him and Victorious were out there, when Arthur was playing shooting guard, who would have thunk it? Arthur Lattimore playing shooting guard, Victorious out there at center. They stormed back in that Saturday showcase, and they came back and won.
They did.
So I think
No, I was just going to say, look, I like the theory of position mattering for Arthur a lot, and the idea of him not wanting to play a kind of true traditional 5 playing off somebody. Look, there's another team in Texas, too. There's Lone Star Basketball Club. They'll be bringing back Mason Green. 6'11" post presence. I could see Mason playing center, allowing Lattimore to play more off as a 4, kind of more of a power forward. But, I will say that you're talking kids, too. Always got to remember, these are just 16, 17-year-olds at the SimWorld Hoops level. Yeah. And, I think the appeal of playing back home, being in a friendly comfortable environment, got your friends and family around you, come out to watch you play. That's a strong appeal too. I could see that going on. Hey, let me throw a wild card out there as well that kind of combines both of our theories of play close to home, but also look at position for where you're going to end up. And maybe Gulf Coast could be an interesting destination. Mr. Lattimore. Keep in mind, Deonta Joyce should be returning. He pulled down 7.1 rebounds, 6'10", 200-pounder who might fit as a nice piece, and definitely some other young talent.
De'Aaron Cruz, Suno Chapa. That would be
Bevinson Patches.
That would be a scary. They just need to find a point guard, and I think they would be able to. That'd be a scary team to have.
Yeah,
Chapa, Cruz. You have Joyce down low, and Lattimore either plays small forward or power forward.
Somebody send a note to Coach Hyman, Amir Hyman. You might want to be on top of the news that Mr. Lattimore is changing destinations. And hey,
well, hold on. I think
New Orleans not so far from Houston. Not so far.
I mean, Nick Heesh for Gulf Coast. Coach Nick Heesh needs to.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Yeah. Oh, yes. God, I'm living in the past.
You are living in
Coach
the past.
Hyman has, of course, moved on. Yeah. Well, All right. Well, hey, let's.
I apologize for E. It is afternoon, so he is allowed to drink.
Well, if I'm living in the past, let's at least get things up to the present, Bob. And so I've talked plenty about Arthur Lattimore. Who do you got for year two? One of year two. Where's he going to end up?
Honestly, I mean, Arthur Lattimore is definitely. It'd be hard to make that list without including him. So he was definitely on my list. But my other one, and I'll come up with another one as well, but my other one was going to be Royce Anderson. For me, Royce Anderson, obviously, Bay Area has so much talent. And all of that talent, we never really got to see what each of those talented players could really do, including Trey Hyman. I mean, you had your starting five and your backup five were essentially, you had two starting units. And those players, obviously, some of them were frustrated with the playing time that they got or their ability to shine because they had to share so much spotlight. I think Royce Anderson could easily be a top two guard in all of SimWorld Prep. And I know one of the things is his number one thing is he wants to be the guy, period. He doesn't want to really share the court with anybody else that is going to dominate offensively. And that's where I kind of leaned with, I have three choices for him here. And they're all, again, I know, I feel like these would be the best fits for what he wants. And I'm trying to lean more towards what they want. Well, I guess I lean towards what I wanted with Arthur Lattimore, with him being with the defensive big. But with Royce Anderson, I'll lean towards what he wants. And I think for me, three teams that he should consider: AT Aliens, Showtime Basketball, and Gotham 5. These are all teams that they've lost their guy. With the AT Aliens, they're returning Isaiah Rose, Adam Mahmoud, Richard Alpine. Who?
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. Obviously, Adam Mahmoud is. I mean, he's a really good 3-point shooter. I think that he would be a great pair with Royce Anderson, and I just think if he really and he'd be close to home. Obviously, he'd be in Georgia. There, he's from Florida. He'd be close to home. Family be able to fly out and see him, or drive and see him. Whatever. I don't know how far that drive is. But yeah, I think that would be a good choice. Showtime, obviously. They don't have a guy right now. Like, they have Corey Ems down low, but he's not really the guy when it comes to offense. He might have an explosion here or there, but they need somebody. And I think that Royce Anderson could be that guy to replace the Bronny James and the Bryce James. Well, not really Bryce James, really just Bronny. Bronny was that team last year. And I think that I'm not saying that Royce Anderson is as talented as Bronny is, but I do think that he would be able to replace a lot of that scoring offense that Showtime is losing with him moving on to college and obviously the whole Hart situation. And then Gotham 5.
Bryce leaving too.
Yeah, it was Bryce leaving too. Jackson McLean, I think he was extremely... I think he was an underutilized big.
Agreed.
And I think that
Agreed.
he is going to really shine once he moves on to college. I know Cal, UCLA, and USC are looking at him, and I really think that he's going to shine now that he moves on. And again, that's one of those things where you had Bronny James, who really was going to get a chance to shine when you have Bronny James. And then Gotham 5, really, I mean, they do return Majere Williams. They do return Muggin Williams. Keontae DeOr didn't really do a whole lot despite having I really thought he showed out last preseason or last offseason between the Ground Zero season and season 1, but then he just didn't do a whole lot. So you got Hakeem Matthews, Majere Williams, Muggin Williams. They lost their guy, who I expected to be their guy coming into this season, and that was Keon Anthony. He decided he's not returning to Gotham 5. Who knows if he's even going to play in SimWorld Prep ever again. I mean, with what happened to Bronny, I can see Carmelo yanking him out and telling him to focus on other things. And obviously, Mackenzie Mbako, he's gone. So Gotham 5 doesn't have their guy. They are losing most of their offense, and I think that Royce Anderson could really shine being the guy in Gotham 5, and I don't think he's afraid of the media attention that he would receive there, which saw Coach Bellardi get canned after a bad start. So those are for Royce Anderson. I do AT Alien, Showtime, Gotham 5. I think they would be great choices for him.
Yeah, well, it's interesting, Bob. How do you think this all kind of works in with the yacht club as well? Because we've seen recently some news stories coming about Royce being seen, spotted, playing, seeing friends, seeing people down in South Florida there. And of course, that's where he's from. So it makes sense that he would be there. So it could all be a false smoke signal. But, it's funny. You're 100% right about, I think Royce has been kind of clear about what he wants. And look, this is a guy who averaged 11 points, 3 boards, 2 assists on a really loaded team last year. I mean, it's not like he didn't show his skills, but I think he does want to be a featured person in the program, in the offense somewhere for his 17-year, his last season probably in SimWorld. So I could see the yacht club being a really good fit for that in terms of, they're bringing a lot of guys back who, but they're not alphas in terms of, guys like Ramon Escobar. He's expected back. Garrett Hart, great piece, but not necessarily that alpha dog going to score 25 points a night. I think you could say that about Trey Willis too. We know that Trey Willis is a very talented player, but he's not going to be, demanding that. And for a yacht club team that has lost Dominic Bianco and Adam Max, I mean, that's about 30 points a night and a huge hole in your offense. I think the yacht club could be very, very, very interesting for Royce if you can convince Jay Laster to go someplace else. So that's kind of what it comes down to, right? And look, we know Jay Laster himself is looking around.
Yeah.
So, you talk about, Rick Blaze and I both like to post some domino memes from time to time and talk about dominoes falling and all that. But, I mean, here are 2 pieces must just be kind of circling each other warily, like sharks that smell blood in the water. Jay Laster. And look, Laster's like 6'5", 190 pounds. We know Royce is about 6'6", 200. They're physically similar. Their games are similar. They can both shoot from 3. They both do a little bit of everything. I will put it this way. If Jay Laster actually does relocate, then I could see the yacht club being a very, not only sort of like emotionally attractive situation in the same way that I could see Lattimore going back home to Houston. I could see Royce going back home to South Florida for that way. But I actually think that the team setup there would be really good for him if Jay Laster's not there. I would like to believe that there's a universe where those two could coexist and, basically play a 3-guard offense, and they're both sort of 2 shooting guards out there, swing guys kind of doing their thing. But the reality is I think they both want to kind of be at the heads of teams, and, there's only 1 spot per squad for that role. So we'll see how that all shakes out. But I just want to throw up a hand for the yacht club for Royce too, because I think that could be a good destination.
So I'm glad you brought them up because I did leave them off, and I intentionally left them off. So with Jay Laster being in the recruiting pool, he announced his decision that he wasn't sure if he was going to return to the team or not. He wanted to move on, maybe find himself a team where he could be more of a focal point. Adam Max is gone now. He is no
Adam
longer in
Max.
SimWorld Prep. That was going to be a huge portion of that offense being taken away from whoever's going to be there. And when Adam Max was there, I felt like that, while it would be a good matchup with Royce Anderson and Adam Max, I felt like Adam Max would take too much of the focal point of that offense from Royce to want to be there. There's the rumor that Kayvon Jackson is going to be going to the Yacht Club. With that rumor, is Royce Anderson going to want to because Kayvon Jackson is he's going to demand not because of his personality, but because of his talent, he is going to demand a good portion of that offense. Jay Laster does have the Yacht Club in his top 3 he could potentially return, and that is family. Despite wanting to move on, maybe not feeling like you're getting the shine that you're getting, it is extremely hard to officially leave family, and that's why none of this is official until after the first week of October. And at the end of the day, is he really willing to leave family for what he might see as greener pastures? And I don't think so. I think we're going to see Jay Laster return to the Yacht Club. I think that we could potentially see a Kayvon Jackson go to the Yacht Club. There are other players out there.
Royce doesn't go home. There's no way.
Yeah, I think that if Jay Laster returns to the Yacht Club, there is a chance that Royce does decide to go there. But I think Jay Laster is going to demand some more offense because that's why he was leaving. He wanted to get that shine somewhere else. And with everybody that was going to take his shine going away, now he can get his shine by staying in the Yacht Club or with Yacht Club. So I think, go ahead, E.
Well, I just want to throw one thing out there too, which is, Jay Laster. You're right. He is considering coming back to the Yacht Club, but I've also heard him talk about, and keep in mind, what have I been talking about all show? That where you grew up, where you come from matters. You don't run from where you come from. And I think that's true for these kids too. Jay Laster is a Virginia boy.
Yeah.
And I know that he's talked about DMV, but he's also talked about Queen City Kings.
Yeah.
There in North Carolina. And for somebody that wants to be the star of the show, QCK has to be a top destination. Yep. Coming off a disappointing season where they had some big names like Norvell DeJohn-Jones and Braxton Schuyler, who just didn't show up.
Yeah,
didn't have Braxton Schuyler averaged 7 points a game, folks. It's like, what happened, young man? But anyway, they don't bring back much. Anthony Council would be their leading returning scorer, assuming he comes back. Actually,
no, Sky Durant's coming back. He was their returning leading scorer.
All right, I forgot about Sky.
Sky is coming back.
Messed me up. Okay, you're bringing Sky back. He's the one guy there, but they're losing a ton.
Yes,
they're absolutely losing a ton there in Carolina, and I mean, I looked at Jay Laster before we were doing the show today too, Bob, and I could see him moving to Queen City. Again, like it's just the kind of place that is looking for star power, both in terms of having a marquee name to just kind of, build the franchise identity around, but also to put the ball in the bucket on the court.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's not Jay, if Royce's eyes aren't on Queen City and he doesn't, somebody who will end up in the portal is going to be the marquee signing for Queen City because there is a program that needs one and needs to turn this around.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up Jay Laster. I'm glad you brought up Queen City Kings because they, like you said, they are being forced to replace a lot. They literally return Council and Durant. While that is great for Coach Skinny coming in, that he can now build his team however he wants, he's also going to be limited on who he can bring in. And unfortunately, that's just let me ask you this, E. Do you consider North Carolina the North or the South?
It's the South. Barely, but it's the South.
Or maybe Southeast. We'll go Southeast. It's the Southeast. Whatever. I still consider it the North. But anyways, I do think that Coach Skinny is going to... I think Jay Laster would be a good fit. I think that's a good choice for him to go. But we also have to look at one, I don't know what off the top of my head, I can't remember what the team budget is if he can bring 1 or 2 people in. I assume that we are immediately going to have to knock off one of his scholarships being Renzo Bryant, following him from Heartland. And I think that at that point,
that would be a great guy to bring in to build a franchise around too, no doubt about it.
I think my concern then is, again, I think Renzo, Jay Laster, Sky Durant, and Council would be a great starting block for any coach. Who's your big? I think that Coach Skinny needs to, because yes, Sky Durant is 6'7", but when you look around to some of these, man, it's the milk. It has to be the milk, right? It has to be the milk that these kids are drinking, all the steroids that are put into the cows and stuff.
Fluorescent lights and beef hormones. It's just a different world these days.
But the amount of 7-footers that we have in the 6'10", the 6'10", 6'11" guys, it's like I think that a focal point has to be big. So it's like, do you bring in Renzo and a big, or do you bring in Jay Laster and Renzo and hope that the offense is going to be able to carry you? But then you see what happens in the big games in the race to 1, what happens to the teams that don't have a dominant interior defense. They just kind of they went away. And that's why, I mean, Beast of the East had one of the top interior defenses in the race to 1, and they won the whole thing. The Originators had one of the best interior defenses, and they made it to 1 game away from the championship, where they lost to Beast of the East. So it's all that talent would be great for Queen City and Coach Skinny, but realistically, is it going to get him far next season in the playoffs? Every team gets a chance in the playoffs next season, but does it matter if you get bounced in round 1? It doesn't matter how good you do in the regular season. But if you get bounced in the first round because you just decided to neglect that particular part of the court, it's not going to look good. So I think, I do think that you are on a track there with Jay Laster going to Queen City potentially. But I think that Coach Skinny needs to sit down and really think hard about, is that the most important position, or should I look at a Carter Fields? Bring a Carter Fields in.
You just nailed it. Because I was going to say, I don't want to over elaborate on this point, but if Coach Skinny can maybe bring Renzo along to Carolina with him, don't forget that Carter Fields is from Greensboro. He's a Tar Heel. He's a North Carolina boy himself.
You're right. And that's no sponsorship. No sponsorship needed, Coach.
There you go. Bring home Carter Fields. Bring him home. So hey, that would change the scene in Queen City. Well, Bob, we've covered off a handful of players. We've even covered a handful of franchises as it ended up with the conversation today. Those were the couple guys that I kind of brought to talk about. Do you have anybody else that you wanted to make any final comments, predictions, or please, I suppose, for where they should go?
So quick, because you talk about you love your Texas teams. You're a Cowboys fan. Unfortunately, if I'd have known that beforehand, I don't think we'd be doing this podcast together. But
I'm just 40-0. I just want to say that one time. Okay, go ahead.
I just think people really need to look out for players like Marl Dawn and Kai. Obviously, Kai Killens is really out there. But Dawn, I think he's an underrated. He's an underrated player. His mixtape came out recently, and he could do a little. He looks like he can do a little bit of everything.
That's right. I love guys like that. That's why I paid attention. I'm like, ooh, I like this kid.
But I really think,
how do you say that name? I like this kid.
I think
it's
Texas,
Moreau, everybody.
For coaches like Coach Bellardi, who only have a single sponsorship to bring someone from the outside, I think that when you have some in-house talent like that, that could be a game changer for him. So, and that's where if he were to bring in Arthur Lattimore and shun JMO, some of this talent that they have down there could be a really, really scary team. Are there any final ones? Any quick hitters for you, E?
No, not on the team movement topic. Although somewhat related. Maybe you can kind of segue to and start to end the show on this. Don't forget that our podcast drops here in the afternoon, but at 8:00 tonight we have the Tyson Simpson commitment announcement. Not committing to a SimWorld Hoops school, but committing to a college, and very interested to see where think Tyson ends up. I don't have any kind of feel for where he's going to be either. I'm just curious to find out. So 8 o'clock Eastern, Tyson Simpson's commitment. Remember about that one.
I think the top three right now, I think it's Duke, North Carolina, and Virginia, if I can remember off the top of my head. Any one of those teams would be ecstatic to get a player like Tyson Simpson. Do you imagine?
I love that's the final three because it's just going to make the world more shocked when he picks my Hoosiers, but that's fine.
I think it'll be a little more shocking when he picks my Penn State Nittany Lions. All right.
Oh, that would be shocking.
Well, E, I appreciate you as always. I appreciate all the listeners. We appreciate all the listeners. Make sure you head over to our Discord, SimWorld Hoops. Like us on YouTube, SimWorld 4K, all that stuff, all the good stuff. Make sure you just hit us up, get engaged in the media feed. Be there or be square.
The only place where you can see the game and be the game, after all.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, E. I hope everybody has a great rest of their weekend.
See you, folks.